Conversations with Phil, inspiring survivor interviews of hope, resilience, and triumph over adversity. Today, Dr. Liz O'Riordan, breast surgeon and 3-time survivor, shares her expert insights and personal journey in the fight against breast cancer.
Hello, Liz.
Hi, Phil.
Amazing to see you.
You too.
I know you as a 2-time breast cancer survivor and breast
3-time.
3. Is your website up to date?
Possibly not.
Right, okay. Well, you can expand on that a little bit more. And obviously,
Yeah.
Another thing is, are you actually a practicing surgeon right now? Because it says you're
No.
retired. You're not.
I retired.
You're retired. Right, okay.
I'm a consultant. I was a consultant breast surgeon. And 2 years after starting training, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was 40. I had no family history. I had every treatment that my patients had and realized how little I knew about what it was like to actually have breast cancer. I went back to work after 18 months of chemotherapy, mastectomy, reconstruction, radiotherapy, the works. And I'd had a nodule of scar tissue on my chest wall underneath my armpit. That was actually a 2.5 centimeter local recurrence. And I had surgery and radiotherapy for that in 2018. And the side effects of that meant that my left arm didn't work properly and I couldn't operate anymore. And then last year, the day before my memoir, Under the Knife, came out, I noticed a little ulcer on my mastectomy scar, and that was a second local recurrence. So I had surgery for that, and I'm now on treatment for life to hopefully stop it coming back a third time.
The thing to kind of share there is that, recurrence is a real thing.
Yeah.
Was it a worry because you knew about it? Was it actually?
Yeah. It was really hard because we know a lot about metastatic cancer when it comes back and it can't be cured and the treatments for that. But local recurrence, where it just comes back in the breast or chest wall area, is actually really rare. It's only about 3% of all breast cancer cases. So there's no trials, there's no data, there's no community groups, there's no support groups, there's no one else to talk to. And I found that really hard because I'm a surgeon used to having all the data at my fingertips, and I knew it would increase the risk of me getting Mets, but you don't really know by how much. And it was this really weird place to be in. And again, this time, my surgeon said it's a bit like weeding the garden. We just keep nibbling away bits of skin and it keeps coming back in the skin. And hopefully it will never come back anywhere else. But that fear is always there.
Yeah. So as a surgeon, had you seen a lot of recurrence in your patients?
Yeah. So I would often see people who came to the clinic with suspicious symptoms like a cough or some bone pain or a backache that ended up being metastatic disease. And I would pass them on to the oncologists who then looked after them. But I have seen quite a few women who've had local recurrences like I did, and we just nibble them away and then hope that we never saw them again. But it doesn't happen very often. And because it's so rare, there are no trials, there is no data. You treat them based on, I guess, the best experience that you have.
Yeah. Now, sadly, I'm going to have to kind of point something out then. You said women.
I just say women and men initially. But yeah, I am very aware that whenever we talk about breast cancer, and I'm guilty here, we say women because we see very, very few men. And actually, when I worked in Suffolk, we have one of the highest areas of men with breast cancer in the country. And I will put my hand up and say it's a slip of the tongue. We need people like you to remind us, for people like you, men like you, men do get breast cancer and it can happen at a young age. How hard it was for you to be in a very female environment going through treatment.
I mean, we kind of discussed this when I came on your Insta Live.
Yeah.
From my point of view, it was always just a medical environment. It wasn't a gender-based thing.
Yeah.
It was like you are getting surgery, you are getting treatment. It's the same regardless of your gender. I mean, I was chatting to someone the other day and I said, men or women. And then they picked up on me and said, tend to say people now. I mean, that pretty much covers everything.
It does. People get breast cancer.
One of the things that did, I don't know whether you've seen it, but there was a transsexual man in America who sadly passed away. But the information that I kind of took from it was the the treatment that he received potentially caused the breast cancer. Again, another thing I didn't know could happen.
I didn't hear about that. What treatment had he had?
So obviously I guess it was a hormone treatment.
Yeah, okay. So estrogen doesn't cause breast cancer. But if you have breast cancer cells with estrogen receptors, then a lot of estrogen will make them grow more quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's obviously, because again, every time I speak to somebody, I'm learning something new. And
yeah.
Someone said, everyone has the BRCA gene. And I was like, what?
No.
What? But
we do, but we don't have the mutation.
It's the mutation is the correct term to look. I'm like, right, okay, because it's just a continuous kind of journey of understanding as you go along. Obviously, from you will have done this over a long period of time and to a higher level than most people will ever understand. But from a not, like from a layman's point of view, there's literally a new thing lands on your lap every day. And I guess this is why your book was so well received and recommended by a lot of patients, because if you've seen it from both sides of fence, and obviously you're now able to explain it as a patient and as a surgeon.
And the second edition is coming out this October. There have been 20 new drugs in the last 5 years. It's incredible. So we've got an updated version coming out.
Amazing. Well, I was going to say, is there going to be another book? Is there another book in Liz?
So there's so many books, Phil. So the second edition of the breast cancer book is coming out. I'm just finishing my third book, which is looking at cancer myth busting, cancer generally. Right, I want to write a book about exercise in breast cancer, but the problem is there aren't enough high-profile cancer exercise experts in the social media space. So my next mission is to boost their profiles so publishers will realize we need these books. And then I've got thrillers. I want to work out how to kill someone on a train and get away with it.
Amazing. Potential movie in the works.
Who knows? And maybe another memoir about Mum and I. It's too soon to do that yet, but
yeah. No, I mean, obviously you endorsed my the book.
Your brilliant book. I love it.
It is a brilliant book. I still take I still struggle when people go, oh, it's an amazing book, Phil, well done. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for the contents of it.
No, it takes a hell of a lot of work to come up with an idea and see it through and collect and edit. And you have to learn to take a compliment, Phil. When someone says thank you for what you did, you say thank you and leave it there. Because without you, it wouldn't have happened.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Liz. I find crazy information out which I've never heard of before. 7 years into my kind of like breast cancer journey, was there anything that kind of like, as a patient, you then found out, which was kind of shocking for you, that you didn't know as a surgeon?
Oh, I've spoken about this before. The biggest thing for me was hair loss during chemo. And this is going to sound ridiculous. I knew you lost the hair in your head. I didn't realize you lost all your body hair. Pubes, leg hair. I didn't realize that. And I didn't realize how emotionally disturbing radiotherapy was, how lonely and isolating it felt lying on that table. But I think as the years have gone on, I am shocked by the things people send me about the stuff they hear. What does cause cancer? What doesn't cause cancer? Does this treat it? And I am shocked and amazed and terrified at just how much crazy stuff is out there.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, there's only you and a couple of other people that kind of are putting people right. And I think mainly because the majority of people in the breast cancer community are not experts. They won't.
Yeah. But I think it's also exhausting. If someone sends me a video that says carrot juice can cure cancer, I feel I need to counteract this because it's not true, because people are avoiding chemo and drinking carrot juice. But it'll take me a day to go and do the research to make sure that what I'm saying is right. And the energy, and then the negative comments you get from people who believe this, who depend on this, it is soul destroying. And when you don't have 1 million followers, it's very hard to actually make an impact in that space. There are days where you think, why do I bother? should I really be upset that people are choosing to drink carrot juice and not have chemotherapy? Is it my fault if they die earlier? Because we know women and men with breast cancer, well, actually, it was a study in women done in the States. If you choose alternative therapies instead of traditional treatments, you are 6 times more likely to die.
Wow, I mean, that's worth knowing. No,
Yeah.
and to kind of correct you a little bit, I know you say I haven't got a million followers, but I think the information you put out, a lot of people really value
Thank you.
and refer to. So I don't think it's wasted. Plus, I mean, because of your background, it has more weight, and I think you do believe it, and it is shared. And you know, all I've heard is amazing things about people's opinion of you and what you're doing. So I think the myth book is a really good idea. But yeah, I know what you're doing is obviously is amazing, I think.
Thank you.
There you
Feeling
go.
the love, sharing it back.
Yeah, we're just
done.
paying compliments to each other. It's all good, isn't it? Well, how did you, because you've got some quite nice photos on your website.
Yeah.
Is that a conscious thing?
Towards the end of chemo, my husband noticed that a local photographer had just won an Olympus Gold Award. And he said, why don't you go and get a photo shoot done? And I said, don't be stupid. I look horrific. I do not want to remember looking like this. And then I thought, I hope I'm only going to look like this once. And it might be nice to have a photo just to look back on and see how I've changed. So we set up this photo shoot. And halfway through, it was almost like I could let my emotions out. I'd been hiding so much about what I was really feeling. I said, look, I just want to strip off and I want to show this is me. And I had some craving shots with me and then my husband and I topless from the waist up. And it was just really emotional and raw and vulnerable. And I just this is actually what I'm feeling in front of the camera. And he was the most amazing photographer. They're really powerful shots. And then I went back to get some headshots done. And after my first recurrence, when I'd lost my reconstruction, I was flat. I thought, I want photos like this. But I wasn't really accepting what I looked like. I wasn't really looking in the mirror, but I wanted a photographic record. And then when I thought, I can't be an exercise promoter if I'm not in the gym, and I got really fit and I cut down and I got really muscly, I thought, right, I want to remember what I look like. And I've got photos of me just standing there in my knickers, topless, arms up, feeling strong. And actually, I own my body. I accept who I am. And it's been incredible to have those and see how I've changed over the last 8 years and really reflect on how amazing cancer can change your life.
Do you ever, this is something that popped into my head a few times, but I've never asked anyone. Do you ever look at your pre-surgery self and what kind of...
It's really weird, isn't it? I look at photos of me. And so I talk about photos. I knew I was going to find out I had cancer the day before I did because I knew my biopsy was positive. So we went to the beach and there's photos of me playing in the sea with our dogs. And the day before I started chemo, I went with my husband, I want to remember what I look like before my world changes forever. And we've got cornfields near us. And I was there and I stripped off in the corn with my hair in the wind. It's like, this is me. And I look at that and I think, I don't know who she was. And I don't know how to feel like she was, and I'm not her now, but that sense of loss and that regret. And then I look at me during chemo bowls and I think, I don't recognize that woman. I don't know who she is. It's almost like this 10-year, she had no idea how amazing she was and what she was doing. And she didn't realize what life was all about. It's really hard. I want to give her a hug and say everything's okay because I know she was struggling with so many issues and there's so much I wish I could have told her. Yeah. But I'm glad I've discovered it now. But it's like, I look at photos of my wedding and think, God, did I ever look like that? Is that me? What I do have, though, is cleavage envy. So as a surgeon, I'd be looking at women on the tube in the bus saying, yeah, she's had a boob job and she's had a boob job. And now I go, she's got really nice breasts. And so I miss wearing low-cut tops and having a cleavage.
I mean, can you tell the difference between someone that's just had kind of breast surgery, reconstruction and just like aesthetic reconstruction from a distance?
Boob jobs you can do because they don't sit the same. They're often much higher. They don't flop round to the side. If they've not been done well, and a lot of them haven't, then you can tell.
When you say that, when they haven't been done well, is that the aesthetic one or
the aesthetic ones? So often, you often don't see many women who've had breast surgery wearing very low cut tops, but sometimes you can tell, especially because you haven't got the fat. If you've had an implant, you haven't got the fat and the tissue underneath the breast to give it that subtle look. So often you can see the ripple of the implant. You can't see with a DIEP when they've used their fat on the tummy because it's the same. It's not a natural shape. You can tell they are sitting up too high. They don't have that normal slope and takeoff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So let's. When you were doing.
Do you look at but Phil? Do you look at your old photo? Why do you find it hard to look at your old photos, or do you?
I think it's completely different for men.
Tell me.
Well, do you know what? There wasn't a lot of photos of me topless because it's just not a thing. And then I found one photo of me in a swimming pool in the south of France, actually, and I was like, hold on, and I was like, oh, that's. I think I've got it. I think that's the.
Yeah.
The only shot I've got of my nipple, and I'm like, I don't know whether that looks a little bit different than the other one.
Yeah. Did you have chemo and lose your hair?
No.
So you've not had that change, whereas I had longish, thick, wavy, blondie, browny hair, and then you suddenly go to the short grey curls. So there's a really dramatic difference. So to go from, I was identified by my thick, huge, frizzy, wavy hair, and then to go to no hair and then the short chemo curls, it's a complete transformation that you didn't plan.
Yeah. I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but I'm kind of grateful I didn't have to go through that. But that's, again, things where people are like, oh, did you lose your hair? And I'm like, shit, no. One of the things actually that has helped me keep telling my story was, and obviously it relates to you, kind of, was someone said, imagine how often my breast surgeon has to give bad news, and he was able to give you good news, and how happy they were to be able to pass that on. And I guess that must be something that you've experienced in the past.
Yeah. I could tell 10 women a day on a Friday they had cancer, it had come back, their margins are positive, they needed chemo. And some weeks it's all bad news. And to have a week where cancer's out, you don't need chemo, you're fine. It's like, oh, this is good.
Yeah. Why is it a Friday? Mine was a Friday.
I don't know. It's the way at the end of the week you get the results in. I don't know. I hated it. Double maths. Just hated it.
It's a weird time.
And then you go home and it's the weekend and there's no one to ring. We shouldn't give bad news on a Friday.
Yeah. Is it? I mean, well, it must be who devised the Friday idea? Because it definitely is a Friday. I got all my news on Friday.
I think now it's a Wednesday. It just depends on hospital clinics and when they're set up. But yeah, it's not good.
Right. Do you want to, are you allowed to have an opinion on the Enhertu situation? Actually, does the Enhertu emergency affect you?
No, it doesn't. But I think we need to get more drug access and better drug access. And I think it's awful. And I know there's a lot of policy and red tape in the House and Wise, but this is a drug that could potentially change lives of women and men who are dying at the moment. Now, we don't always check for low HER2. We kind of say you're positive or negative. So I think we need to start saying you are HER2-1. This may be an option for you. I think it's awful to hold back a drug that could extend people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, the way it was explained to me was it won't, layman's terms, it won't always have a positive effect on every low HER2 patient. Is what my understanding is, and that's why there's a bit of
But you could say we give chemo to 100 people to save 5 or 6 lives. You know, the threshold for giving chemo is often 5 or 6% benefit at 10 years, and I don't know whether you're the one who's going to get the benefit or you're the one who's not, but we give it. And I think that has to be the same with Enhertu, especially with people with metastatic disease.
Yeah.
I hope we'll get there.
I didn't. Well, again, there you go. I've learned something I didn't realize. The success, c- chemo success
It's
rate.
a So, I mean, my benefit was 30 or 40%. It depends on your cancer, but we can't beat bad biology. And we know that it can come back. I had chemo, radiotherapy, surgery, ovary switched off, hormone blockers, and it still come back twice. You can't beat bad biology. All we can do is use, and we've got the oncotype testing to now make it more accurate to say who is it worth giving chemotherapy to, where the benefits are worse than the harms.
What's that called? What was that called again?
So there's the oncotype is one, and mammoprint. There are 2 or 3 genetic tests that we do. If you are borderline benefit of chemotherapy, then we can do a profile of 21 genes. And there's been studies that have done that put you into a low, intermediate to high risk of recurrence. So if you're borderline for chemo, but this says high risk of recurrence, we'll give it to you. If you're borderline and this says with this extra information, you're a low risk of recurrence, we know we can safely say it's not worth giving you chemo. It won't have an impact.
Right. Well, it will have an impact, but it won't affect.
You'd be having an awful lot of misery and side effects, but you probably wouldn't get the benefit at 10 years.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the current breast screening age in the UK?
Oh, I've just been getting trolls for my latest mammogram videos. So again, because Switzerland have banned it. There are 2 schools of thought in the mammogram world. There are a whole school of doctors who think they're dangerous, they don't work, they shouldn't be given. And then there are doctors like me who think they're a good thing. So it's completely divided. And people don't understand the principles of a screening program. So it's got to be something that is acceptable to a large proportion of the population. It's got to be cheap to do, quick, reliable, accurate. There's got to be a proven disease that if it's caught early can reduce mortality. There are all these things that have to happen. The problem is mammograms work when your breasts aren't dense. They work in women when they're older and men because dense breast tissue is white and a cancer looks white, so you can't see them. That's why we start at the age of 50 when your breasts start to get less dense because your hormone levels drop. They are not as accurate in younger women. So there's more odds of you having a normal mammogram, but there may be something very small that's hiding. Ultrasounds aren't a great screening tool. MRIs aren't a great screening tool. And the minute in some areas, only a third of women are going for their mammographic screenings because they're hearing shit online saying they're crazy. The thing in America starting at 40 was really pushed by an awful lot of women saying, we want. And it's, you can pay to have the providers that's done. My worry is they can be falsely reassuring, especially if you have dense breasts, but we have nothing else. I think in the UK, we did a trial starting at 47 that didn't show a benefit, but when 2/3 of women aren't going at the age of 50, there's no point dropping it to 40 unless we're all going to turn up.
Wow. 2/3?
Yeah, in some places, and half of women aren't going for their second screening mammogram. This is not just COVID, this is actually happening at the minute. And screening only works, you only save the lives if 80 or 90% of the population are going. So you could say at the minute there's no point screening the UK because women aren't turning up.
I mean,
so we're not screening enough women to get the benefits.
I mean, there's always going to be a percentage of people that don't do it for whatever reason.
And it's hard, you work, you can't go to your appointment. There's lots of reasons why. But and one of the things people pushing mammogram screening is that they save lives. Well, I think for every 1 life that you save, you'll overtreat 3. And that means we're picking up cancers in women in their 60s and 70s who are very small, very low growing. If they weren't treated, they may grow and spread, but that woman would die of something else, not of metastatic breast cancer. But mammograms mean that you're less likely to need a mastectomy, you're less likely to need chemotherapy, you're less likely to need invasive treatments. And we haven't got the studies to give a quantifiable number, but they mean you need less treatment.
Oh, so are you talking about it would be a lumpectomy rather than a...
Yeah, so it's a DCIS, sadly, that's a non-invasive breast cancer. Most of the time, that's a little bit. Sometimes you can have DCIS in the whole breast, so you need to have a mastectomy. But if we're talking about a small cancer, if you catch a small cancer in a small breast, you need a lumpectomy. If you wait until you feel that as a lump 4 or 5 years later, then it may be too big, you may need a mastectomy. And if you've left it get bigger, it may have gone to the lymph nodes, you're much more likely to need chemotherapy. Whereas if you catch it when it's tiny, it's a lumpectomy and done.
Yeah. Yeah, which is...
But a lot...
Yeah, which is obviously the aim, isn't it?
Yeah, to
So
do the least possible.
yeah, so what is, in your opinion, the best breast screening tool to use? I know that's a difficult question, but
No, no, no. So at the moment, it's mammograms. And the thing is, when you have a screening mammogram, it is double read. So it's read by one doctor and then it's read by another separate doctor at another time, completely independent. And we're using AI to see if that can be the second read. So it's double checked by two people independently. And if they both agree it's normal, it's normal. If one of them says yes and one of them says no, then you're called back for another look. It is double read, completely independent. You can't do that with an ultrasound because an ultrasound involves one person in real time slowly moving a probe back and forth, side to side, and then up and down. And that probe depends. If it's not completely perpendicular, it's like that. You get a very different view. And they cannot take a live image. To record that ultrasound, you may have 10, 20 minutes of footage. No one has the time to go look at 20 minutes of a footage to see was there anything missed. So you don't have that tied in level of accuracy, and it takes longer to do. And it's not as accurate. And again, someone with a J-cup breast is a very different ultrasound to someone with a double A. And MRIs are not great to screen the whole population because they are invasive. They involve having contrast. They can take, the fast ones take 10 or 15 minutes to do. It involves lying on your tummy. They're noisy. They're claustrophobic. It's not a tool that's acceptable for all the population. We are looking at doing MRIs for women who've got dense breasts to see if that can increase the pick-up rates. But at the moment, mammograms are all we have.
so mammograms are the way. I did speak to Gareth, Professor Gareth. I want to say Jones. He's the guy that kind of like he
Oh,
went
yeah.
and he was like, well, I was asking him about the mammogram, and he said it's like 20 in a million chance of it causing.
Yeah, so mammograms do cause cancer through the radiation. A mammogram is it's the same as living in your environment for 6 to 7 weeks. That's the amount of radiation you get from a mammogram. It's living in your environment from the background radiation from the sun and the soil. The risk is about 1 in 30,000. When you're 40, your risk of getting breast cancer is 1 in 60. So that actual increase in risk of a mammogram, and that's if you have your mammogram every 3 years or 20 years, it is absolutely tiny. But people pick up on that and say mammograms cause breast cancer. Don't go. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny risk.
Yeah. I mean, I think people need to understand that. Again, there's another one for your book, I guess,
Yeah.
to explain that fully. And no, I mean, obviously, the funny thing, you can explain it in your words, but then for some people who are just average Joe blogs, they're going to kind of struggle a little bit to kind of understand because there's a lot of figures being thrown around.
Yeah. And that's why I've got a load of like 1,000 yellow pom-poms. Because we're visual, I can say risk, but people don't understand relative risk and absolute risk and hazard ratios and what does that risk mean to you. So I use number trees. Let's take 1,000 women, and this is actually how many are affected, so people can actually see and understand what that number means to them.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
But I think people can fudge the statistics to make something sound scary, so you then go and buy their product. It is very easy to be manipulated. It's what the headlines do. There was a thing saying bacon doubles your risk of getting breast cancer. Actually, you need to eat bacon 3 times a day for 5 years. And yes, it may double your risk, but your risk is actually tiny. So it's like an extra half a person in 10 years.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sell newspapers.
Obviously, like a lot of people refer to your information and are inspired by what you're doing. Who is it that inspires you? Online authors?
Oh, there are quite a few doctors out there doing great work debunking things. David Robert Grimes, Adrian Chavez, there's Joe, I can't remember. There are lots of people out there putting their head above the parapet to debunk things to try and make people's lives better. And I think they are brilliant, and it is really, really hard work. There are some crazy fitness people I follow. There's an amazing girl called Henley Fitness who basically swears at you and says, come on now, move your effing ass. You can do it. Just being really inspirational. But I don't actually watch a lot of content myself because it was soul destroying and all consuming. And I now kind of see Instagram as a job and I'll put stuff out there, and I might check my comments every once in a while, but I can't keep up with it. Otherwise, I don't have time for me. Which sounds really bad, but when you're trying to manage communities on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn, and then you're writing and doing podcasts, it's just all too much.
Yeah. So
you obviously are wonderful.
No, I wasn't fishing for a compliment.
But often it's knitting and sewing and hedgehogs and gardening. It's not stuff in the cancer space. It's just stuff that brings me joy and makes me happy.
Yeah.
But it's great. There are so many of us out there now putting the same message out there and making breast cancer less scary and more accessible. And just, I want anyone diagnosed to know they're not alone and to find their tribe.
Yeah.
And I hope now, again, the Black Women Rising, there's a lot of South Asian stuff, trying to find people like you where you can share your experiences and know you're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the biggest myth of all the people that are the inspiring people that are correcting the myths? What's the biggest myth that you detest or see the most of or want to change?
I think the diet stuff is huge. The whole sugar causes cancer, starved sugar, detox, keto, all that. And supplements.
How did the sugar thing start? Because that was something I think I
heard. Okay. How long have you got? So there's a guy called Otto Warburg who won a Nobel Prize, who discovered that normally when you get fuel, you break down glucose with oxygen to make fuel. And cancer cells do this without oxygen, even when there's loads of oxygen around. But you need a lot more glucose to get the same amount of energy. So he said, cancer cells burn a lot of sugar. And that is because their mitochondria are broken. Therefore, if we starve the body of sugar, cancer cells will die. Which sounds quite plausible.
Yeah.
But it's not true. Cancer cells can use sugar and fat and proteins for energy. And they do it without oxygen because they get fuel much more quickly, and it creates a acidic inflammatory environment that's good for them. And he didn't get the Nobel Prize for discovering this. But the real kicker is, if you want to cut sugar out of your diet, it means eliminating every fruit, vegetable, grain, legume. Because bread is sugar, and peas are sugar, and pasta is sugar. Every carbohydrate gets broken down to sugar. Now, the sugars in donuts and cakes and sweets, that's processed sugar. That's still not great for us. We shouldn't eat a lot, but that's because you eat a lot, you get fat. And when you're fat, that increases the risk of 13 types of cancer. You can't cut sugar out of the diet unless you go carnivore, and that's really, really, really bad for your health.
Yeah.
But people are making millions selling diets and courses and doing this, and it's BS. And I think the problem is, I never talked to cancer patients about what to eat because I assumed everyone knew you just eat a healthy diet. The World Cancer Research Fund covers all the research, and everybody, whether you've had cancer or not, should be eating a plant-based diet with a rainbow of fruit and veg, limit red meat to 3 times a week, cut down alcohol. You do not need supplements or vitamins. That's it. But there are 20,000 diet books about cancer on Amazon. People are desperate. And it's like, if I take a supplement, it's easy and I'll be cured, rather than having to go and eat fresh food and cook it. And it's expensive and a privilege to be able to eat healthily. I get that. But the supplement industry, So
you wouldn't recommend any cancer diet book that exists?
No.
Unless you bring one out.
But I won't, because the World Cancer Research Federation have done it. There is no
pamphlet. It could just be like 2 pages. Eat well.
The thing is, I could say bananas cure cancer and make millions selling them, and it's bullshit. People are doing it to make money off vulnerable cancer patients. There is no cancer diet. It is just common sense. 80% you eat well, and then 20% of the time you have stuff for fun because you've had cancer and food should be fun.
Yeah.
But the supplements, a third of supplements don't contain what they're meant to. They are not regulated by law. You could be buying turmeric and it could be talcum powder, and you have no way of knowing. And they don't work, and you don't need them. All you need is a basic multivitamin if you're not getting a lot of fruit and veg, and that's it.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all, is it?
They're not regulated by law.
Well, yeah, again, the average person wouldn't realize
that. No.
I do see a bit more. I've seen a few things recently where the advertising standards agency are getting into social media a little bit and saying, you can't start selling these things. You have no, I think they were targeting celebs who are
Yeah.
recommending certain
It is
things.
illegal to advertise anything that can cure cancer that is not a medicine given in the hospital. It is illegal by the Cancer Act 1939. And yet so many people and supplements, what they do is they say, you know, this can cure cancer, this can help the symptoms. Then at the very bottom, we are not allowed to give medical advice. Please ask your doctor if it's safe. But up here, they've said, take this because it's been shown to cure cancer.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I've never heard of that law before. That's interesting that it's not used
Yeah.
often. Because I would stop a lot of people from doing it.
But it's hard to regulate. When you think of how many websites and companies and videos are produced every day, they cannot regulate everything. It's almost up to us to say, report them. So the government is saying, this company is saying this can cure cancer and this is illegal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, people can do that, I guess. If they really want
So.
to. Where would you like to see the UK's or even the worldwide kind of breast community being in 5 years' time? If anything positive could change and it be a better place for new patients. 10 years, is that easier or?
No. I'm just thinking, wow, no one's ever asked me that before. Great question. I would like to see an end to the postcode lottery so every patient has equal access to trials and new drugs. Because at the minute, it's if you're in the big cities with a big cancer centre and if you live in rural Suffolk or the Highlands of Scotland, you're screwed. So equal access to trials, postcode lotteries, everybody should be in a trial to help better. I think that is one thing. I would love, when you are newly diagnosed, instead of doctors like me saying, don't go on Google, to be given a digital signpost to say, this is a list of approved apps, forums, websites, books, influencers that our patients and team have looked at and recommended, because you're going to go on your phone and you've got to go and tell your mum or your dad what happened and you won't have a clue. And I think embracing the good online to digitally signpost people to safe resources they can go to help would be really, really, really good. I would love to see more research money put into metastatic cancer, but also that research shared, because, you know, my mum died of bone cancer. It's really rare. They don't get the money. And I think whereas in COVID, everyone came together for the greater good to create a vaccine. Can we just share this to try and help other cancers get the same impact? I'd love to see it disappear. And I think we need to get into schools and we need to tell kids who won't listen to us that drinking, being overweight and not exercising increase your risk of getting a lot of cancers. And you're not going to like hearing it, but we need to instigate these healthy lifestyle measures so they carry them on throughout life to try and lower the incidence of breast cancer and every other cancer across the world. Can you make that happen, Phil?
I think we can make it happen. And I'm talking generally to everyone that hear you talking and people that I follow and that follow me. I think there's no reason why we can't make a dent in.
I think it's the public health getting into schools and saying, breast cancer can happen, so you need to check your breast. Let us show you how to do it properly. Don't watch videos with celebs. This is how you do it. This is why you should do it. This is what to look out for. This is what you say to your GP to go in to get an appointment. And yes, it's boring, but you've got to eat well and exercise. Sorry.
It is boring. I'm joking.
But it's hard to say. It's like, I'll go and buy Davina's DVD and watch eating a pack of biscuits and think I'm healthy because I can't be asked to put the work in. You know, it is hard to start that habit, but it is really, really important. Plus, more people with breast cancer die of heart disease than people who don't have breast cancer. And exercise and a healthy diet can reduce that happening. You know, a bit of that is because some of the drugs are cardiotoxic, like chemotherapy.
Most people.
More women, I'm going to say women because it's women in the studies. The studies have shown that more women with breast cancer die of heart disease than women who don't have breast cancer. So there's something about having breast cancer that can increase your likelihood of getting heart disease. Small risk if you're listening, don't panic. But exercising, eating a healthy diet, plus breast cancer drugs are cardiotoxic. Chemotherapy can affect the heart. The anthracyclines can. Herceptin treatments can affect the heart. So it's an even more of a reason to eat well and exercise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're getting that treatment, there's no dodging those risks, though, is there?
No, but exercise and trying to keep the weight down can help, and it is monitored. But this is just normal people. Plus, the biggest killer of women is generally heart disease and strokes.
Yeah. Right. To go back to the perfect situation.
Yes.
In 5 years' time, what would, you say the digital signpost at the moment. Where would you say that is? Is it NHS?
I don't think there is one. I think you don't go on a hospital website to get information about breast cancer. Most people don't go to NHS. They don't know the NHS website exists, so they can only say things that are approved by the NHS. Most people will either go on Google or Facebook or Instagram. And if you've never had cancer, you're not aware the breast cancer community is there online because you've never been in it. You don't know what's out there. You don't know who to believe. You may go on Amazon and find a breast cancer diet book written by a shark, a quack, and think that's true. And I think what we need is for breast care nurses to maybe be able to collate by asking their patients. You know, you ask everyone at the 1 year follow-up, which resources do you find helpful online? They can go away, have a look, check to see if they're accurate and evidence-based, and then say to their patients, right, these are the places our patients have recommended to us that they wish they'd known about when they were first diagnosed. They've done the hard work, so you've got a list of places to go to start you on this journey you are inevitably going to go down. I mean, breast cancer now is the obvious and Macmillan, but people want stories. You want to hear from other people.
But then you've got the myth popping up as well at the same time. And even, you know, like you say, even in the community, that's a thing, isn't it?
Conspiracies. So maybe we need to tell patients you're going to hear a lot of stuff online and you're not going to know what's true or not, but this is how, I do this a bit in my book coming out, this is how you interpret, these are the red flags to watch out for, this is where you should be double checking stuff before you spend your money or believe it, and educating people how to understand what they read online, because we don't get that training at school.
Yeah.
Just because someone says it in a podcast doesn't mean it's true.
No. So here's the question. Even though you were a breast surgeon, when you got that first diagnosis, and you obviously you said you knew by the biopsy, you just knew.
Yeah.
What was the first thing you did?
I went on Google and I Googled metastatic breast cancer.
And was that helpful or not?
I'm a pessimist. I need to know how bad things are going to be so I can then climb up. That's how I am. I had never been a patient. I bought 10 books written by other patients because I had never had chemotherapy. I didn't know how bad tamoxifen was. Would Zoladex injections really hurt? I scared myself shitless trying to find information.
That helped though. Did that help you in a way?
It helped. It helped me. I needed to try and find that information because as a doctor, I need information to make decisions. And I had nothing. I had no frame of reference. I didn't know where to go. I went on a couple of forums, but then people were saying stupid stuff and I wanted to say, yeah, but I'm a surgeon and that's not true. They, oh God, can we ask you stuff? They, no, I can't. And that's why finding doctors with cancer gave me that safe space to be able to talk about what I was feeling. But I needed that online space to help. And a lot of what I saw was dangerous, but I knew it was dangerous and I knew not to trust it. But not everyone is the same. Some people just, whereas my mum wanted to know nothing. I will listen to what the doctors tell me. When they tell me it, I needed to know everything and I did not know where to go.
Did you feel you, even when you went looking for information and then you had people requesting information, that you almost went from a patient back to being a surgeon?
It was easier to be a doctor. Sorry, did I feel like I had the
support in those?
No. It's hard treating a doctor as a doctor because people assume you know a lot of things and actually you don't, you're just a scared patient. It was easier for me to be a doctor in the forums because I could go into denial and give them advice, but I wasn't getting the support I needed. And it was only, I told Twitter I had breast cancer. It was the best thing I did because so many people gave me advice, but I found Trish Greenhouse, who I wrote the book with. I found another couple of doctors who had cancer. And they gave me the support because they understood how scary it is to be on the other side of the table with this knowledge we have of people like us who've died. I can't unsee the young women I've looked after who've died. And that's why it's really, really hard. And part of me is still in denial that I've had it 3 times because I know what the future might be. A lot of people don't have that information. So it's why I've got a WhatsApp group with about 300 doctors with cancer where we can share what it's like for us to get that. Special is the wrong word, but the support we need.
Well, that support you can't get anywhere else, really, is it?
No.
People. Is that? I mean, do all, because obviously there's more than 300 doctors have had cancer.
Yeah.
Is that well known, that group?
So most of us kind of find people. It's not well known globally spread. It's kind of like a little word of a mouth thing. And I needed a lot in the beginning. Now I just dabble because I've kind of moved on from that part of my life. But it's lovely knowing it's able to help people all over the world just share their experiences of everything to do with cancer, work, finances, travel insurance, and stuff that normal people have. But we just have this different level of knowledge, and it can be really scary. And then I feel embarrassed asking my doctor a question because I feel I don't want to come across like I know more than you, but I do know more than you now because I've been researching it. And now I get what my patients are like, that they came to me asking about a trial thinking, oh my God, I can't insult her.
Yeah.
Really weird dog on the other side.
Obviously, this isn't true, but I kind of imagine you being a surgeon and a doctor, that you're almost kind of treating yourself. But of course, you were then under another doctor, weren't you? You had your own
Yeah.
oncologist and surgeon, and
Who I'd worked with. They were colleagues. They were friends.
Really?
Yeah.
And was there any moments where you were like, actually, that's not what I want, or that's wrong, or was there any questionable moments?
I wasn't treated in the hospital where I worked as a consultant. I didn't think I had cancer the first time, and I didn't want them being nosy about my breast at an MDT. So I went to the hospital where my husband works, where I trained. I didn't think I'd have cancer. And my surgeon was a friend, a mentor. She trained me, and she said, I don't know. I talk about this in my book. I don't know whether I can treat you because I know you too well. Where do you want to go? And I could have gone anywhere. I know everybody, but I wanted to stay local. If it was a problem during chemotherapy, it meant my husband could come, but we had to stop being friends. Yeah. And I saw her in the coffee shop an hour later, and she had to blank me because I can't be your friend now. I'm just your surgeon. And I've worked with the oncologist when I was a breast surgeon there. My husband was the medical director at the time. It was a really weird relationship to be in. And that, and you're sat in the clinic and people recognize you because you've worked there. Hi, how are you? No, this isn't good. I'm here as a patient. It was really, really hard. Yeah, and giving up control and realizing you're just a vulnerable, frightened patient, and learning to let people help you and to stop being in control. That was really hard.
So is that your advice to people almost?
Yeah, I think you can't control cancer. You just have to trust that the team looking after you are bloody good at what they're doing. And you can try every crack and gimmick and supplement and diet, and it can still come back because you can't beat bad biology. And although I used to focus and obsess over how bad my stats were, will I be alive in 40 years? I've realized in time, it's 50-50. It kills me or it doesn't. And I could spend the rest of my life worrying every day. And we get that when you get a headache or a hip ache and think, oh my God, and you go into that awful roller coaster of anxiety, but it is out of my control. All I can do is the best I can and enjoy the life I have and accept what life has in store for me. And it took me 5 years to get to that point, but that helps me now.
Yeah. You've mentioned biology on quite a few occasions.
To
my knowledge, you don't have any genetics.
No, I don't. I think there's so much we don't know about breast cancer. We know that it carries on mutating. So when you've had surgery to remove your breast cancer, there are probably cells that are still floating around in your bloodstream, your lymph. They haven't found a friend. They're just there. They're dormant. And that's why we give things like chemotherapy and radiotherapy and hormone blockers to mop them up. When they wake up and start to grow, these treatments go zap, right, they're done. But these cancer cells can stay asleep for up to 20, 30 years. And for some reason, they just wake up, they start to grow, they form a little tumor, they can carry on mutating. And that's why metastatic treatments stop working, because cancer cells just keep mutating to get resistance. But some cancers are really aggressive from the beginning. And we can have a small estrogen sensitive hormone positive cancer that's very small, it's low grade, it's node negative. And I've seen women dead in a year because there's still stuff we don't understand. Some cancers just have really bad biology. They're just really aggressive. Whatever we throw at them, they keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And we don't know what makes that happen. We're hoping in the future, as more genetic testing comes in, more personalized testing, we can now say, I've got a PIK3 gene mutation. So if I get metastatic cancer, there's a drug that can target that mutation. We'll be much better at cherry picking and giving individual treatments for cancers. But at the moment, they're just sneaky little so-and-sos. Yeah. And you cannot predict what they're going to do.
I had genetic testing, what will be nearly well, it'll be 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Apparently, Mr. Gareth told me I would have only been tested for BRCA1 and 2, and he said you need to go back now, and because there's now 5 other tests on
Yeah.
the NHS. I think it's
So
post-dependent, but
that test is done. Do you have children, Phil?
I've got one daughter.
That test is worth doing to see if you carry a gene mutation that might affect your daughter in the future. It won't have any difference on your treatment. We know there are drugs that you can have if you're BRCA1 and 2 olaparib, if you're a triple negative breast cancer with BRCA1 and 2. If you're not, there's no other treatment at the moment we would give you for your cancer to stop it coming back. But because you have a family, I think it's worthwhile you going back to have those extra gene tests done, because if they are positive, it may change what your daughter does in the future and whether you need to tell her and at what stage she may do something. So I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So what would you recommend? Because I think the information I was given was if you had the new genetic test came in about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
About
For the
right.
PALB and the Check2 stuff. Yeah.
So if you had,
I'm not an
a
expert.
genetic test before what, 2019, I guess.
Yeah.
You probably need to go back.
I think if you were high risk enough to get a test in the first place, which may have just been BRCA1 or 2, you could write to your breast cancer surgeon or geneticist if you saw and say, look, I'm aware there's some new genes that have been discovered. Is it worth me being tested again? I've got a family, I'd like to know. Yeah. And they will tell you whether it's worth you having those extra tests based on your risk.
Yeah. Well, again, this is something that took me a few months to kind of understand, even though it's relatively simple what you just explained then. Now I'm like, right, I get it.
But it's also scary because it's a bit like HIV test. If an HIV test is normal, then you're fine. But if it's positive, it's life-changing. And if you find out, I have a gene, so your daughter may be under increased. If you find out that you have one of these new genes, you're then right, okay, I need to tell my daughter, but when do I tell her? Because if it was a gene with an increased risk of breast cancer, we wouldn't operate until she was in her early 20s when the breasts have finished developing. But when does she need to make that decision? How is it going to impact her life? And I have to live with this ticking time bomb to decide when to tell her. And actually, do I not need to have that test until she is 18, 19? Because it's not going to affect what she does now. The implications of a positive test are huge. And that's why the geneticist can sometimes take 1 or 2 years to go through the counseling. So you are prepared to act on what a positive result might mean.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as a blood test.
At the time, even on the day I went in for my results, they were like, you don't have to have these. And I was like, well,
yeah,
I think I need to. I think I need to know. But obviously they were thinking about the bigger picture of a positive result. I mean, again, thankfully it wasn't, but then weirdly that added to more confusion because I was like, well, what caused it?
Bad luck,
lifestyle, bad biology,
bad luck. So I kind of explain cancer like a series of spelling mistakes. If you imagine the word chocolate, and I drank like a fish at medical school, so that turned the C into an S. It's now chocolate. You can still read it. And I didn't really exercise when I was a junior doctor because of my 14-hour shift. So that may change the T at the end to a D. So I've now got a chocolate. You can still kind of read it. But you then need all those other letters to be changed in the right order at the right time for a cell to finally become a cancer.
Yeah.
A lot of it is bad luck and chance. A BRCA mutation may have changed 7 of those letters, but you still needed a little bit extra to change the other 3 because not everyone with BRCA gets cancer.
Yeah, well, again, the stats are quite low for
60 to 80%, depending on the gene. From what I remember.
Actually, because I always thought the stats was 10% of breast cancers are caused by genetics.
Yes, so 5 to 10% of breast cancers are due to genetics.
Yeah, I thought it was,
Yeah, but if you have the BRCA1 or 2 gene, your risk of getting breast cancer is 60 to 80% in your lifetime compared to 12 to 17%. But that still means 20, 30% of people with a BRCA mutation will not get breast cancer.
Yeah. But, for the wider public, genetics play a small part. However, if you have the mutation, the risk is massively elevated, especially BRCA2, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all cheery stuff. But
But people are living longer. There are new drugs being invented all the while. The stats are incredible. You take Chris Alenga, who sadly died, but she survives at 12 or 15 years with metastatic breast cancer.
amazing.
The average life used to be 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It is becoming more of a chronic disease for some people. And I dream of the day when breast surgeons like me are out of a job.
Well, I get that was something we brought up last time, and obviously you probably, well, breast surgeons will always have work to do, won't they? I
Not
guess.
really. We're super specialists in removing bits of lumps from breasts. We're not very good at anything else.
But it's always going to be a thing. Because, well, I mean, unless we cure cancer full stop, which would be amazing, but I think that's
Yeah.
not within our lifetime, maybe. But
No.
yeah, I mean, I always thought I'd like to see the shift from, you know, aggressive treatment to more preventative treatments, which sounds like common sense.
Yeah.
But obviously
So
that shift
you
would be,
can't prevent breast cancer because the biggest risk factors are being a woman and getting older. Can't change that. You can reduce the risk with healthy lifestyle measures, which are boring, which young people don't want to listen to. I don't know whether we'll ever find a way to prevent it. But by giving fewer people the aggressive treatments, so everyone only gets the treatments they need.
what's your view on everyone having a risk, like a breast risk assessment?
Yeah, I think that there's a brilliant one come from Australia called I Prevent. I Prevent. And what that does is, as well as your family history, that takes into account how much you drink and how much you weigh. And I think it's useful for girls to do that in your 20s, 30s, and it will tell you what your risk is compared to a normal person of your age. Again, I think it's aimed at women. I'm not sure whether it's aimed at men. Probably not, because there just isn't the data.
Yeah.
And if that's a way of helping you think, well, okay, this will say if you cut down your alcohol and increase more, it will drop your risk. It might be another thing to help someone say, I'm going to live a bit more healthily now.
Yeah.
I think we should all know, and if that encourages more people to check their breasts regularly and to go for the screening mammograms, there are things you can do to lower the odds of it happening to you.
Absolutely. I mean that is something that people can't argue with. And it's pretty, and like you say, it's pretty common sense, isn't it? Did you, just as like in your lifetime as a surgeon, did you see any swing in the demographic changing slightly at all? Were there
Yeah.
more younger women getting it, or were there fewer younger women developing breast cancer?
When I was training as a student and a junior doctor, breast cancer was a disease of old women, 60s, 70s, 80s. And I went away to do my PhD and I came back and suddenly we were seeing 20 and 30-year-olds. And the average age of breast cancer kind of dropped from 55 to it now starting at 45. So it is getting younger and we don't know why. Part of it will be an unhealthy lifestyle. Maybe there's more women with genetic diseases coming through, not diseases, mutations. We know it's more prevalent in African American women. And we also know that women are more likely to have more aggressive disease. And it's not that if you're 40, you're more likely to live you're more likely to live until you're 80 to get a recurrence. It's they're getting recurrences more quickly. And we don't know why cancers in young women behave so differently to cancers in older women. And again, women, just because that's all we have the data on.
I mean, again, you might not know this data, but were there less younger women dying from breast cancer that were kind of undiagnosed in the
I don't
past?
think so. I think if you were diagnosed with metastatic disease, a young cancer, you would know. But it's the same. I've operated on women in their 20s with bowel cancer. Deborah James is a great example. Cancer is happening at a much younger age now. We are seeing it more and more common in people in their 20s and 30s when it used to be 40s, 50s.
But it's not a case of awareness is making people be able to be diagnosed.
No, because there aren't screening programs when you're young. Because it's easy to think Instagram is full of young women dying, but it's not. Well, it is, but actually women in their 80s aren't on Instagram talking about their breast cancer. So you can feel it's more common. There aren't the screening programs because the incidence is still so low. It's not worth screening every 20-year-old with a fecal occult blood test because the pickup rate is so small.
Well,
but it is
did you actually notice any trends over your lifetime as a surgeon? Other
Just
than,
that cancer patients are getting younger, and the younger ones are more likely to die than the older ones.
oh, I mean, that's frightening.
But I think part of that is they're more likely to live long enough to have a recurrence, if that makes sense. A lot of young people with cancer will go on to live a long, healthy life. So I don't want to scare anybody, because this is like really scary. If you are young, it does not mean you're going to die. A lot of people go on to live, most go on to live a long and healthy life. But proportionally, there are more people getting metastatic disease when they're younger compared to if you're diagnosed in your 20s and 30s compared to in your 80s and 90s.
Yeah. But I suppose you need to balance that as well with the amount of, you must have been catching a lot of younger people and having lumpectomies, or is
Yeah.
that the case?
And actually, the data that we have is based on trials that are 10 years old. So your risk of recurrence today is a lot lower because we've got all these new drugs, all these new treatments. So the data I'm talking about is with women who were treated 10 years ago. But as I said, there were 20 new drugs in the last 5 years. You are much more likely to survive for a longer period of time because we've got all these new drugs that can help.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing, and it's exhausting to keep up with all the trials and all the data. And I'm not always up to date.
Well, actually, you could just briefly tell people at least about the green tick, blue tick, green tick.
Yeah, the PIF tick. Yes, yes. So, and I keep remembering to do this, there's a thing called the Patient Information Forum where trusted medical content creators can put this on their videos. And this means that I have to do my homework. I have to prove that the videos are the latest evidence-based medicine, that they are accessible language, there's no jargon. I check them every 2 or 3 years to make sure they're up to date and change them if they're not. There are a few of us out there who have them. I often put them on my YouTube videos, but if you see that, it means I am a trusted health information creator, and you can trust everything that I say is up to date. A lot of work to do. It took about 3 or 4 months to do the homework to get that, to prove that I had a system in place, but we are slowly getting there.
And you put that on your book.
Yes.
When the myth book comes out, or debunking myths.
Yes.
We don't want it to be a myth book. We want it to be truth.
Sadly, the people who need to read it won't, because they do believe the conspiracy theories. But if I can change a few people's minds.
You are. I mean, you're doing amazing things. Question that probably everyone wants to know. Well, actually, I'll ask you.
What's my favourite colour? I've had my nails done specially for you. Look, I've got leopard print.
Just written down yellow. So why aren't you wearing yellow, and why yellow?
I am. I've got yellow shoes on.
Okay.
Cold. I never wore it. But 5 years ago, I was in a style rut. I'm in mid-40s. I've had cancer twice. I don't know what to wear. And I just started experimenting with colour because my hair had gone grey. I had the blue, and I thought, oh, I quite like yellow. And it was good to have a thing. And again, when you're trying to brand and create an identity online, I like the colour yellow. My nails are always yellow. There's always something yellow in the background. It's just something you associate with me. And it's bright and it's cheery. It's just my thing. What's your thing? Do you have a favourite colour or something you always have on that makes you feel like you?
Well,
or is it your glasses? I love my glasses.
Potentially the glasses. Yeah. Well, do you know what? I was a little bit kind of, when you sent that message to say let's chat, I was kind of like a little bit, I don't think I'd watched much of your stuff, and I was a little bit wary. I don't want to say scared, but
I do come across as scary at times. It's a surgeon in me.
Well, no, it's confidence, and I was quite nervous talking to you for the first time.
I'm friendly, really.
No, but
the videos are all an act, though. The videos are an act. Our chat was fab.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was good. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, because the glasses are quite unique. I've never ever seen your glasses on anyone else, so that's a good thing.
They are 3D printed titanium mesh, and they cost a lot of money. I got them with the advance to my breast cancer book.
Right.
Everywhere I go, if I'm in Denmark, people speak to me in Danish. If I'm in France, they speak to me in French. It's weird.
Because the glasses are amazing, or you look French and Danish?
I think the glasses are so different. I just kind of blend in. It's weird, but I love them. Yeah. And they change colour.
They are changing colour a little bit.
They go black when you look to the side.
Well, I mean,
you've got the mesh.
Yeah, they're very dark, then light. But yeah, we've both got our, if you ignore the colour. the glasses and the quiff have both got the same thing. But you see, I've gone to a few events without my glasses on, and people like wear glasses. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know whether I like them anymore. I don't know. I need a rebrand.
you do.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll have a think. I'll have a think about that. Thank you for chatting to me, Liz. That was very informative and yes, not scary.
Thank you for reminding me that men get breast cancer. It is
do you know
it is
what?
hard. No, but it is really, really important because I am conscious that we say women a lot because they're most people we treat, but actually there are a lot of men who don't realize what the symptoms are. They think it's just jogger's nipple. It's really, really important to continue to raise awareness. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Bless you. Thank you for saying that. Well, you only have to say it 1% of the time and you're statistically correct. So that's, but I just
Okay.
feel I felt the whole way through you were very women and men. You kept saying.
I know, but it's true because it's bad that we don't have the stats. You were like me with my local recurrence. Predict isn't really there for men because there aren't enough men to get the evidence to say you're in this lonely little club and it's really, really hard.
Well, do you know what? I'm not. I know, like, the club's amazing. The people are amazing. So if any men are watching this, reach out to the community and everyone, people are people. So, and they're a good bunch of people. I like helping support them and encourage them and doing my bit. So
it's nice to turn something positive out of what could be a very dark time, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I'll let you go and walk your dog. Thank you for chatting. When are we going to meet, though? When are we going to meet? We need to do.
But you live so bloody far away from me.
You live bloody far away from me.
Well, if you're in Boston next week, I can meet you there.
No, I've been invited to Florida to a BRCA thing.
But you don't have BRCA. Why are you flying over there if you don't have BRCA?
They wanted to pay for it. They want to give me an award.
Seriously? What for?
For my efforts in the community.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I need to. That was BRCA Strong. BRCA Strong.
Wow. That is incredible. I didn't get flown to Florida.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, so let's
manifest.
See. I'm going to the NIP charity. They've invited me as a VIP to their gala dinner.
Nice.
They want me.
You definitely need a rebrand for that.
Yeah, well, they want me to get a nipple tattoo, and I'm still not convinced. I don't know.
Don't do it for them. Have a tattoo because you want it, not for them. Get a temporary one from Claire's Accessorize.
I don't know how I feel about that.
The temporary stick-on ones, literally temporary tattoo for the event that'll wash off in the shower in a couple of weeks.
They actually do a temporary one for you. I don't know, it's like henna or something, but apparently they're better than the NHS ones.
No, anyway. But like you could have like a rose or a Dalek.
A Dalek.
Whatever, you can get Amazon. You can do fake transfer tattoos that you just kind of soak on for a laugh for a fancy dress party.
Get some Care Bears.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that,
we have changed subject.
Yeah, on that ridiculous point. Oh no, I'm sure at some point we will meet. This year. I'm certain of it, and I hope we do. Thanks, Liz, and I hope you have a nice dog walk.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for chatting.
Conversations with Phil. Inspiring survivor interviews of hope, resilience, and triumph over adversity.